Ren from Hallowed Be Thy Game, and today I'm going to share my thoughts on Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Let's check it out. Welcome back to another episode of Hallowed Be Thy Game, and today we are basking once again in that nostalgia goodness. Yes, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. What a mouthful. Anyways, I just got to say right off the bat, my initial impressions were looking really good, and by the end of this game, it is just a wonderful kind of reminiscing trip down memory lane, which is always one of my favorite things. Now, when this game released, I had a little bit of confusion why they were so hesitant to call it a remake, because it had brand new updated visuals, a new combat system, and it looked like they had kind of redone some of the voice acting. And after experiencing it, I can honestly say this is a fantastic remake. However, there are some connotations to that. Right off the bat, I have freaking loved my entire time with this game, and I gotta say, the combat system, chef's kiss good. Hits all the right notes. Crisis Core, for those of you who may not know, is a prequel to the events of the original Final Fantasy VII release. I won't get into any spoilers or anything like that. You play as Zack in this game, and you get to kind of see where the legacy and everything really just took root, and it was just so excellent to see just gorgeous prequel. Now, you know, I originally played this back way in the day on the PSP, so I was extremely ecstatic to kind of see that modern day gamers can have a one-stop shop with like modern day ports of the original 7, now Crisis Core, and the remakes. I mean, essentially, this is fantastic. I love it. You are able to play this essentially on all modern day consoles, which kind of begs the question of if Final Fantasy VII Remake is always going to be exclusive as well, but we won't open up that can of worms right here. Zack is very much a hero from like the early to mid 2000s, which is, you know, when I was like in high school and graduating, getting into college. So it was just excellent and kind of like, oh man, like how heroes used to kind of be portrayed in video games and such like that. It was excellent. But one thing that was kind of interesting to me is the updated voice actor for Zack. I think this is not necessarily an indictment on the actor's capabilities himself, because I thought he had a wonderful range, a very, you know, youthful, boyish excitement, a very idealistic character. It was very well delivered, but there are some cases where the original voice acting was night and day better in the original run. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the voice actor's ability, but rather probably the direction that was given to the actor. But that aside, everything about this game definitely just hits on all notes for me. It was excellent, and this is a great kind of fast-paced adventure. If you're somebody who might be in the mood for kind of a shorter encapsulated experience, since this is essentially still a PSP game, for modern day gamers, there are going to be some events that might happen off screen to where if this had been made today, brand new from the ground up, if characters are hopping in a helicopter in one scene, and then you hear the sound of a helicopter crash in the next, and then suddenly they're stuck on the side of a mountain, you know, for modern day gamers, that might be a little jarring. This is a PSP game, and that's something to remember all the way through. I'm not trying to make excuses for this, but I do kind of understand maybe where Square was a little hesitant to call this a remake, even though there's a lot of fresh coat of paint and modern day quality of life changes that have been brought to this game. There are some technical limitations transferred over from the PSP days. And a big indication of that is kind of like the story pacing and how everything's laid out. Everything happens very quick in this game. You'll be in one area, you'll do some dialogue, and you'll quickly hop into some combat. You'll do combat straight to a dialogue scene. From the dialogue scene to combat, bam, 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 and it'll go back and forth. And you know, a lot of the stages, even though they look very much more modernized, it is a PSP level area layout. So you know, it's a lot of corridors, and you'll kind of be able to detect eventually where enemy spawn points are at. So if you're like walking through a hallway and there's a little bit of an opening or a square or a circular break, in the hallway, if you'll know that if you just hug the outside corner, you'll avoid the spawn point of the enemies in the middle. And that's definitely something that a little different for modern day gamers. That said, the modernized combat system in this is fantastic, and it's something that a simplification, I think, of what we've seen in Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you have a party of 3 characters, and you're kind of you can micromanage other characters and stuff like that. There's a lot of depth to it. Essentially, this is a much more simplified version of the combat system you'll see in 7 Remake. There's going to be a lot of character exposition where you get to know Sephiroth, Zack, Turks, and all that. It is great, and how it kind of drip feeds its story to you. It's very consumable. It's very easy to understand. To be able to see the chemistry between Zack and Aerith, it pulls on those heartstrings. It's just a lovely experience. But again, that combat system, as you start the story, you're going to have access to a few materia slots and armor slots. From here, you're not going to have to worry about upgrading your weapon or anything like that. But you'll be able to have these materia slots, and the more you use them or have them equipped in combat, they will level up and have much more potency in combat. But it was just excellent to be able to have like your basic light attack and heavy attack with square and triangle, depending on what platform you're playing on. And then if you hold down L1, you'll have a modifier system to be able to cast spells or use AP abilities. And what's awesome is there's a very approachable combo system to where if you hit like with 2 light attacks and a heavy attack and then use an AP, or maybe 2 light attacks and then use an AP ability, you'll be able to unleash kind of an empowered attack, and it's very satisfying. And what's extremely cool here is that with this redo, even though they haven't really done anything to the level structure, to the combat, or done anything different with the story or such like that, what they have done is added brand new visuals and updated summon animations and cutscenes. It's jaw-dropping. It is literally, this does not in any way look like a PSP game. It looks like a PS4 game. And it's just fantastic. Now, I did play this on PS5. It runs like a dream. And from what I'm seeing from the Switch port and such like that, this is just another excellent port all around. Again, if you have played any of the other versions, please let people know what you thought of the performance down in the comments. But this is really shaping up to be a must-own game for any system that you're on, especially if you're a Final Fantasy VII fan. If you love Final Fantasy VII, Crisis Core is mandatory gameplay. I think it is on that status. It's not like, talking about Dirge of Cerberus or something that you have to be a mega fan and really look past a lot to love. Like Crisis Core, this remake and repost, it is essentially just takes what I remembered the fun I had as a kid and brings it back to full life. Now, I haven't played the original Crisis Core in well over a decade. Good lord, I know it's been longer than 10 years. There was kind of some archaic aspects of the original combat system that had kind of like, if I remember right, it was like a slot machine reel. Anyways, I believe it's called the DMW system. And essentially, this is like a randomly proccing buff or skill. And this adds some pretty fun, unique modifiers to combat that you kind of always need to be aware of. So there's this slot wheel that's always turning, and depending on what characters Zack kind of melds with emotionally in his mind more, will differ on whether you maybe get a summon to where you can summon Ifrit to just blast enemies away. Or maybe you'll mind meld a little bit with Aerith, and you'll be able to have a full heal and get rid of all your debuffs and nasty stuff. Or you can have a moment where you will negate all MP or magic costs, so you can just spam your spells, which is excellent, by the way. You can also just negate all of your physical damage or magic damage. It's just constantly moving. Now, given the limitations of the hardware that the PSP have, this is a nice way to engage the player more with the combat. So I always found that, okay, if I just hit 2 light attacks and a heavy attack, I can do a lot of damage, or I can do 2 light attacks and dodge. However, depending on what happens with the buffs and the passive buffs, it is totally much more worthwhile instead of burning my MP. As soon as that no MP cost buffs, I just get a lot of distance between my enemies and I start pelting them with magic. Or maybe I'm just extremely liberal with my heals and such like that. There was a lot of customization that I could brought to this that I didn't necessarily remember back when I played the original Crisis Core. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't there. It's been a long time and I was a much different gamer then. but I was extremely happy to see that this felt like a modern, fun game. Now, playing it on normal, there is not a lot of difficulty here. It is just a very enjoyable experience and just kind of hits the synapses in my brain to make me feel like a hardcore, epic soldier, first class. And that's what I really want. I want to feel cool when I'm playing games. And Crisis Core, it hits it, and I love that. On top of that, you have the gorgeous soundtrack by Nobuo Uematsu, that very fun and addictive victory fanfare. It hits it right, okay? And there's still that emotional cheese. Now, I do want to state that the last time I played this game was a very long time ago, and there is some definite early mid-2000s cheese in this from like a lot of Genesis's dialogue, or maybe Angeal being this kind of like hopeless romantic and Zack being this just idealistic kid. It's everything I needed. You know, you just want to feel good and clean and young and hopeful in your heart, and this definitely helps facilitate that. It's all kind of working together in this nostalgia mixture concoction, and what comes out is an excellent modernization of a PSP game. So in summary, I truly believe that the modernization to the combat system and the visuals hitting on all notes. It's fantastic. Some things that detract from it is Zack's voice acting at times, and essentially, yes, it is an old PSP game, so a lot of the level layouts and such like that can feel a little start and go a lot. I think this is probably the perfect game for the Switch and the Steam Deck. I've been having a blast with it on the PS5. And again, I went with the PS5 because I kind of want to be able to have all of the modern Final Fantasy VII games in one location, hanging out by my PSP version of Crisis Core. Anyways, these are just my thoughts and review on Crisis Core. I would love to know what you think of it. Let me know down in the comments. Have you picked this up? Do you think you will? Let me know. Who's your favorite character from Final Fantasy VII? For me, it's always going to be caught between Cloud and Tifa, but together they have the #1 spot in my heart. Anyways, like this video if you liked it, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more Final Fantasy VII and JRPG content. And thank you so much to all the subscribers and patrons of the channel. Your support has just made 2022 one of the, literally the best year I've ever had on YouTube. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Have an incredible Christmas, and I'll see you all next time.